YouTube, it's your boy Mike by the What's good, YouTube? Hope you all doing well, man. It has been a minute for sure since I have posted a real video, man, and for good reason. I've had a lot going on in recent months, real focused on my work and not a whole lot of time or interest in doing anything aside from that. But bottom line is that that time invested was well worth it. Things are much different in terms of my work life, for the better for sure, and yeah, that's sort of the price to pay, I guess you can say. But hope everything is all well in your lives. I am hitting you with this video right now. It is early August. I think it's August the 3rd, 2019. And I have owned this car here, my 2015 Challenger Hellcat, for going on 15 months. It'll be 15 months tomorrow, actually. And I had intended back in May to do a 1 year, not review, but sort of 1 year impression video. And those of you who are familiar with the channel, by the way, those of you who are new, welcome. Those of you who are familiar with my channel know that I have had a number of Challengers over the years, and this is number 5. And you know, there's been some interest, for whatever reason, from some folks. They send me messages and comments and videos and stuff asking me, you know, what do I think about the car after a year? What's it like having it as a daily driver? What's it like expense-wise, particularly compared to the 392? You know, am I planning on getting another one? You know, is there going to be another Challenger after this? And so what I thought I'd do is spend a little bit of time here, guys, and just talk to you a bit about the practical implications of Hellcat ownership. For those of us who, a daily driver Hellcat, should I say. I know there are a lot of videos out there on Hellcats related to performance and mods and, you know, all that sort of stuff. And there are some videos too talking about the daily drivability and utility of the car. And I'm going to hit on a few specifics that I don't see discussed much, and they're questions that I get hit with on a fairly regular basis. So, before I get to that though, sort of the top line overall impression of having the Hellcat for a year now is, you know, am I looking elsewhere at other cars? Am I considering, you know, maybe doing a trade-in? Because it's, after all, it's been 15 months, and for me, that's kind of a long time to have a car. The answer to that is no. I'm very satisfied with the car, guys. I still enjoy it. I mean, I just love Challengers and just Mopar in general, man. I love what they're doing. I love the marketing. You know, man, they got my number dialed, dude, for sure. You look at those Brotherhood of Muscle commercials, and they are speaking to a very narrow segment of that car buying public. And I am proud to say that I am one of them, man. It works, dude. I love every time there's a new commercial, man, I'm like, I gotta watch it like 3 times, because they are definitely fun to watch, and they, I think, do a really good job of representing the lifestyle that is, you know, what we call the SRT life, man, or that Mopar life. It is one focused not just on performance, but also heritage, and that's what really distinguishes the Challenger from, say, the Camaros and the Mustangs and other cars out there that are more of sports cars. You guys have heard me say this 100 times before, man. The Challenger is the truest muscle car, and it's even more so now with the way they are just really just pushing that marketing, man. So that being said, man, the Hellcat, you know, I don't get tired of the power. I don't get tired of the boldness, the Mopar boldness that is this sublime green paint. They just reissued it for 2019. I have not seen them any out on the road. I have seen a couple of them at some dealership lots, and you know, they are fairly easy to get now. They're available in all the trims, and you know, it takes a special commitment to go for a color like this, man. There are a lot of people who look at it and are like, man, that's just like crazy bright. But of course, man, it speaks to the past more so than most other colors that you find on a car. So that never gets tired, that never gets old. I have absolutely no urge to trade this vehicle in. And I don't think my 9-year-old boy would let me anyway. So I'm glad that's all kind of working out. Yeah, so that's sort of like the major takeaway for me right out of the gate. Now, in terms of the utility of the car and the expense of having a Hellcat versus having a 392, there's some important things to say. Now, in terms of utility, I'm not going to talk about things like the trunk and all the other like basic things that you've heard a million other YouTube channels and magazines and reviewers talk about. What I'm going to talk about more is just like the expense of Hellcat ownership, day to day, month to month, year to year. Now, with the one of the big questions that people ask on a very regular basis is the cost of insurance. Now, if you ever want to get just waste your time, go onto Facebook and go onto any of these like challenger groups and see somebody like post a question, what's the insurance like on this car, and then you'll see, say a 2019 392 a Scat Pack, right? And then you'll see all these comments like, oh, I don't know, but I have a 2009 RT and this is what it is. Well, it's apples and potatoes, okay? That is not a good comparison. That is totally useless to you. And so, it's no wonder why there are so many people who constantly are asking this question to me and to, in general, because they go on social media and they see sort of comparisons like that do not answer their question at all. When you got to think here, guys, just a little sort of context here, insurance, your car insurance rate, what you pay for, is determined by many factors, okay? It's determined by the car you're buying, meaning how safe is it? What's the size of the car? Is it new? Is it used? Is it, are you going to be driving it to work that day? What do you do for a living? Do you have a sort of do you have a job where you're going to be on the road a lot and therefore are more risky? Or do you have, minimal use of the car for work? What's your driving history like? How old are you? Are you married? Where do you live? All of these things are factors. Not to mention, okay, did you just go with the first insurance quote that you found, or did you shop around a little bit? And then, if you have an opportunity to get a policy, can you get yourself some additional savings by, adding another car to the policy, or by having, homeowners or renters insurance or something on the policy with that company too, which will give you, a bundled deal, which is essentially, another discount. All of these things go into factoring what you pay for your car insurance. And so, and not to mention, are you paying it for the whole year? Are you paying it a 6-month? Are you doing it monthly? Because obviously the more payments you're making, the more expensive it's going to be for you. Now, all that being said, for me, if you say, okay, Mike, in your situation, what's the difference between what you pay for your Hellcat and what you paid for your last car, which was an SRT 392, 2015, same year as this one, same mileage approximately. The difference for a monthly payment, if you were to calculate it by monthly, is about $16 a month more expensive than my 392, all right? Not a big deal at all. That was one of the first things I looked into when I was interested in getting a Hellcat, when I was seriously considering it for the first time, and I was very pleasantly surprised to see, yes, this is very affordable, not a big deal at all, and all that's good. However, I live in North Carolina, and our North Carolina, we do our car registration and property taxes bundled as one thing. And I have noticed, I will tell you, the Hellcat is definitely more expensive. To the tune, I think it's at least $100 a year more than what it was with my SRT 392. So that's just unfortunate. That's just the way it is. But again, in the grand scheme of things, it's $100. more. I mean, is that going to prevent you from buying a Hellcat if you really want one? Well, probably not. Probably not at all. So that's good to know. I think again, that price amount, $16, is for me in my personal situation as a 44-year-old man living in North Carolina, doing what I do, and with my driving record and my credit rating and my all that stuff. So that's important though for a lot of people, for sure though. Now, in terms of other costs go, like maintenance costs. Now, there are some people who are wondering, okay, what's the difference between, again, the 392 and a Hellcat when it comes to regular maintenance? Well, it's much, much less than what you think, or what you might think. Things like your oil change intervals and things like that, it's all exactly the same. You are doing essentially the same issues with the brakes. 6-piston Brembos. I know you can get the upgraded package on Scat Packs now with the 6 pistons, but even if you're comparing it to a 4-piston system, it's essentially the same thing. I mean, you want to swap out pads on your own. You don't want to go to a brake shop and have them do it for you. It could save you some money. Really, no difference there. There is a reservoir for the coolant system for the supercharger. It's just like the one you have for your radiator, except it's much smaller. You keep an eye on that, and just like your normal radiator, you tap it off every now and then when you need it. Your computer in your car will let you know if it's running a little bit low, even the slightest bit low. The only major difference, guys, is that according to the book, the manual, the SRT 392 says you need to change your spark plugs every 96,000 miles. With the Hellcat, it's every 36,000 miles. Now, that's a fairly good expense, depending on whether or not you're doing it yourself or you're having somebody do it for you. Most people, I think, are going to go to a shop and have it taken care of for you. It's going to cost you several $100s most likely. Not that big of a deal, but again, it is an additional expense compared to the other trims, in particular the SRT 392. But aside from that, guys, there's really not a difference. One thing I will mention that is a little bit more expensive is indeed the gas mileage. The gearing, and I'm speaking here in particular with the manual shifter. I don't know, I can't speak to the 8-speed automatic transmission. But with the manual, the Tremec, I definitely can tell you for sure that my gas mileage is a bit worse than when it was with my 392. What do I mean by that? Well, my 392, with my normal day-to-day commuting, banging around town and so forth, I would fill up the tank, say, once a week, once every 7 days. Now, it's more like once every 5 or 6 days, right? So marginally more, depending on how busy I am. Now, if I'm having a pretty busy week and I'm getting around a lot and so forth, and saying I'm filling it every 5 days, that means a loss of 2 days per week times 4 weeks in a month. That means 8 days. That means essentially an extra tank of gas in the course of a month, or about $50 or so. So that is for sure a little bit more expensive. Not a big deal. And of course, if I ever want to drive it more conservatively, I can. I can take my time and not be so heavy. But why buy a Hellcat if you're going to do that, right? Why do that? The other thing too, guys, this question about gas mileage. I mean, the Hellcat, for what it is, actually doesn't do that bad. Certainly not on the highway. I went on one major road trip with this car where I did some significant portion of that trip on open highway in 6th gear, cruising along at 75, 80 miles an hour, averaging around 25, 26 miles a gallon. Not bad at all, considering what's under the hood of this beast. Banging around town, though, yeah, I'm doing around 12, sometimes 11, if I'm having a lot of fun. Just kind of lighting up the tires a little bit here and there. But for the most part, yeah, it's definitely a bit worse than the 392. But again, if you are concerned about gas mileage, don't get a Challenger, don't get a Charger. Even the V6, because the V6 is only a difference, on the highway of about 5 miles to the gallon. Is 5 miles to the gallon really going to mean that you are going to go with a V6 Pentastar, versus a Hemi, whether it's a 5.7 or a 6.4 or, the 6.2 supercharged Hellcat? Man, you probably, I don't see how gas mileage figures into it. I can't relate to that. But I know for some people it is, and, I'm not going to judge them. That's, we all get our cars for different reasons. But aside from that, guys, the Hellcat is just like owning any of the other Challengers that I have owned most of the time. Like right now, I'm cruising around. I am not lighting up the tires, not doing anything stupid, just enjoying my time with you. And it's just like my 392, my RT. And aside from the manual gearbox here, it's just like my original Challenger, which was an SXT. But when you want to get in on it, like when you want to do that a little bit and break loose the tires, you can do it. And it just like now, it naturally puts a smile on my face all the time. The car is a little louder than it was stock. I did do a mid-muffler delete, which definitely opens it up. The outside of the car is definitely noticeably louder, and I'm so glad I did it. I get a lot of pops too. I don't know if you can hear that, but I get a lot of little pops, which is always fun. Turns a lot of heads. People are like, what's wrong with that guy? But I love it. It's a lot of fun. And fortunately, the drone, while it is louder in the car for sure, inside the cab, I don't get any drone. And I don't know if that's an issue in the automatics, but here with the manual, I don't have any issue with drone at all. My wife has never complained about it. So it is what it is. So anyway, guys, that's kind of all I want to run through with you here, man. I have enjoyed the car. It's still the type of thing where, after a year, I'm still a bit in love. I will park it and I will look over my shoulder at it. As I'm walking away from it, just to enjoy it. And I love keeping it clean, and I'm pretty anal about where I park it and all that. And it's all just been good. It's seriously been good. So if you are thinking about getting a Hellcat, and I was talking to a buddy of mine about this today, actually. One thing I will say, guys, is I can't say enough about the used market with Hellcats. Prices really have leveled off, or should I say they have not dropped off any more than where they were, even say a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, which is about the cheapest you can get a Hellcat on average, like the low average, is the low 40s. Now, yes, can you find the cases of them where they're selling for 40 or even under? Yes, you can. But typically they are not the kind of specimen that you want to take home with you. They may be high miles, they may have several owners, they may have been in an accident, they may be a lemon. It's you get what you pay for. But you can, for the mid 40s, find yourself one of these beasts with reasonable miles, with still good time on your warranty, depending on what year you get, and for a reasonable price, for less than the cost of a new Scat Pack, which is outstanding, man. It is outstanding. And I know right now, just this month, just this week actually, Dodge has announced a summer blowout, or whatever they call it. They've got some really great incentives for buying a new for buying a new 2019. Now I haven't looked too closely at the terms of those incentives, but they are very attractive, man. So what they're saying is essentially take the horsepower of the car and multiply it by 10, and that's the amount that you can get in incentives for that model. So for example, with a 717 horsepower Hellcat, you can get $7,170 in cashback incentives. Okay, now essentially what that does is that discounts the car by $7,000. Starting price of a stripped down Hellcat, I think, is $58,000 and some change. You do the math there, man. You're talking about buying a brand new Hellcat for low 50s. Okay, you throw in tax and title, low 50s out the door. That is a hell of a deal. Now, I say approach with caution as always, and know that they're always going to try to find other ways to make money off you. So, you know, you get that deal and you're like, oh, great. And then you sit down with the finance guy and they are trying to sell you this whole other package on top of the cost of the vehicle, you know, maintenance plan and, you know, gap insurance and, you know, all these other types of things, which very, very quickly can inflate your monthly payment or the overall cost of what you're paying for the vehicle. So just be real mindful of that, guys, as you're looking at those new ones. And also used too, because of course they want to sell you packages for the used ones. Okay, one other observation, guys, about Hellcat is, and this is not a surprise to any of you who are familiar with the Hellcat or the Red Eye, but the issue of getting the power to the ground, yeah, it definitely is a real issue. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a lot of fun lighting up the tires, breaking loose, right? But, you know, you have all this potential with 707 horsepower that, you know, when you just get on it, you're unable to put the power to the ground. The traction just isn't there, regardless of what tires you have on it. I have 295 summer tires in the rear right now, and it, you know, it's, I don't know what it's like to have the stock Pirellis on the 275s. I understand those are kind of terrible. So for all I know, this is better, but it's still bad in that sense. I mean, even now, I'm just very, you know, I take off, you just very lightly feather it, you hit a little bit too much, and you're gonna break loose. And in the rain, forget about it. And this is one of the big differences between the Hellcat and the 392. In the rain, this car is borderline dangerous if you are not being very, very careful. You know, when I have my wife and kids in the car and it's wet out at all, I am being very, very careful with how I am, you know, using that acceleration, because you could just spin out so easily, man. I mean, you just tap it and the back of the car starts walking around. You know, now when you're by yourself, you know, it can be fun. And of course, the Hellcat is always fun with respect to that. But yeah, get power to the ground, man. That's definitely an issue. And I have to say, man, for people who buy the Red Eye, and don't get me wrong, I think the Red Eye is an amazing vehicle. And if I could have one right now, would I have one? Sure, why not? I mean, it's, you know, a ridiculous amount of power. It's the car to have right now, certainly as far as Mopar goes. But you know, the only 305s. You know, that's not gonna do it, you know. And you see there are plenty of videos out there, man, of these cats who are playing around with them or test driving them and are just like, yeah, this is just kind of like the Hellcat, except it's even more extreme, because now you have even more power and only a little bit more tire, and it's just like the same problem but like magnified, you know. Now if you're doing a roll, you know, if you're doing 30, 40, 50 miles an hour and you get on it, that's a different story. I mean, you could feel that torque and that power even more so. But, you know, getting the power to the ground, man, that's definitely one of those things where, you know, part of me enjoys it because it's just fun. But it's also like, yeah, you know, man, if you ever want to take on another vehicle, you know, competing car in some type of race or, you know, something like that, not that I would want to do that, but if one would want to do that, you're at a disadvantage for sure if you are starting, you know, from a red light. So, just an observation, man. A little bit of the reality of Hellcat, of the Hellcat experience. Anyway, guys, I am going to stop rambling here. I hope you are all doing well. I have been having a great year. 2019 has been an amazing year for me. I hope you all doing well. Hit me up with some comments. Hit the subscribe button if you like. I don't know when I'm going to make my next video. But I'll see you on the flip side. Later.